You have second.
How you prepare the K-12 students of online? This is very important because we have a learning process program with teachers, and how you modify and change the spectrum of the learning and the teaching in K-12 is very important for me.
Sure. Very good question. I like that question. So how do we prepare our students for the future learning environment and the workplace? So far, many governments around the world focus on copying some of the curriculum that's from the developing countries and then distributing in the developing countries. And even some of the curriculum sets that we see in the U.S. In the U.S. alone, we don't like the curriculum we have in the U.S. We don't like the education programs that we have in the U.S. And yet, so many countries out there, they like the U.S. curriculum, they adopt it. The problem that I see is that we are so focused on memorization. And in my opinion, our school system, like the one in the U.S., is making our children dumber and dumber. It's a very strong statement, I know. Because what's the education, the role of education? Education is to help each individual explore all the possibilities and reach their full potential as they grow. But the current education system, like the one in the US and many other countries, we treat our learners, the young learners, as cookies in a long conveyor belt. We press the same thing. And at the end of the conveyor belt, we expect every child to do the same. That is totally wrong system, in my opinion. Why do we want every child to be the same? Everyone is different. Everyone thinks differently. Everyone was born with a different talent and interest and different potential. And yet, the public education system is treating every single child the same way. And we're keep putting them in this single conveyor belt and punching the shape, the future of them. I think it's very wrong. And so that's one problem. Right? We're trying to make everyone the same. That's one big problem. The second problem that I see is that the teachers who have gone through this conveyor system, graduate high school, college, they go to classroom, and they're doing the same thing. They're making the same cookies. Because they haven't seen anything. Because that's the way that they have been taught. That's the way they learn. So they don't know other ways. That's a big problem. And we share the problem. And an educator, some of it is our fault. It's our fault, somewhat. That we didn't voice ourselves enough to cause a change. The world is different. Pre-industrial ages, or let's say before even America was found, the education was privileged to a certain group of people. But now, it is not a privilege for a certain group of people. Education is something that everyone deserves. Everyone has right to education. Therefore, I believe that everyone should be given the full access to the highest quality education possible. But what does that look like? Not the conveyor system, not the cookies. called a system. But a system that helps every individual explore all possibilities. How do we do that? When we talk about these concepts, oftentimes people say, well, that's too hard, that's too time consuming, and we don't have time because there's a state exam waiting. We need to teach our kids to do well on the state exam, or otherwise our principals and our governor would be mad. So we're talking about systematic issue. Even you want to change as a teacher, it's very hard to change because your boss, the principal, school district intendant, superintendent, and the education secretary, and so forth, they are afraid. They are very, very afraid to change. And somebody has to break this cycle. Someone has to break this cycle somehow. The education environment that I am envisioning and I have been promoting and I've been experimenting with is like this. When I first came to Baja California, as I showed you in the slide earlier, these kids, the indigenous kids, migrants, niños migrantes indígenas, many of them from Oaxaca mountain. They speak Zapotec, and they don't even speak Spanish. And nobody knows if they're even Mexicans. They have no paperwork to prove that they're Mexicans. And if someone says, well, you guys may be Guatemalan, they have no other way to prove that. No, we're Mexicans. But they cannot because they don't have paperwork, they don't have an ID card, nothing. And they go to these farming areas in Baja California, huge farming areas. They came to the area because they couldn't sustain their life in the mountains because of the climate change. Many things happen there. They cannot raise crops anymore, so they end up in the farm areas. They pick up tomatoes. Kids, parents, everybody picks up tomatoes all day. It's very hot there in summertime. And you have to fill 50 buckets, 5-gallon buckets, 50 of them. And you get paid $5 a day. They wake up at 4 a.m., go to these areas, pick up tomato or cucumber, all these things, all day long. Their life expectancy is 40 years old. If you're 40 years old there, you're very old. And they do not live long because of the harsh living environment. And it is still the reality over there. It is still the reality. It's hard to believe. How is it possible in Mexico? Mexico is one of largest economies. And how do we let that happen? But it is still the reality. Outside of Mexico, Guatemala, Bolivia, it's even worse. When I went there, first time, I went there to help build houses. Many of them didn't have a house. But I soon realized, because I'm an educator, I soon realized that these kids don't go to school. So I asked people, how come they don't go to school? They said, we don't have a school here. Really? I was shocked. I was surprised. So I had to think about ways to help them get education. How do I do that? I don't have a lot of money. I'm not a millionaire. I cannot build schools and supply teachers and so forth. And at the same time, I couldn't live there with them all the time. I had to go back to work, live in Palo Alto, California. So that's when I started to think maybe mobile devices loaded with education content. I loaded Spanish sing-along songs and Spanish storybooks in this little device. And I gave them to these kids, but I did not teach them. I don't like the word teaching. I like them to discover. So I gave them these devices and I said, aliens gave me these devices. I have no idea what they are. Can you tell me what you can find from these devices? And they said, we're talking about kids who never watch television. We're talking about kids who do not own a book. We're talking about kids who don't own any electronic devices. And then they looked at the device and they didn't know what to do. So they thought maybe it's a toy. And then they hit it with a rock. They ground it on the ground. And they were literally breaking the device. So I just watched. You know, I wish they didn't break the devices, but they were breaking. But I didn't stop them. I didn't stop them. Let them play with it. Let them spend time with the device. And then suddenly one little girl pressed the button on the side, and then the device turned on. These devices, it doesn't turn on by just pressing one time. You have to press and hold for 2 seconds. This little girl figured it out. She pressed somehow and turned it on. From that moment, everything changed. Every child around there came to her and asked, "How did you do that? What did you do?" And it starts to make noise, and it shows something on the screen, and everybody was curious. And they started to play with this device. And this girl was able to go up and down, browse different stories, and press one of them and started to hear things. These kids interacted a lot with those town kids. Town kids usually speak English, Spanish. So they know some Spanish, and at that little age, it's very easy for these kids to learn Spanish because they learn very naturally. They just pick up. But anyway, they went through this story, and then there were songs, Spanish songs, like sa, sa, you know those songs, the children's songs. And they loved it. And then they asked me, "Do you have more content? Because we're finished. We want more content." "Really? You finished? Do you like it?" They say, "Yeah, we love these things. We love more of them. I'd like to hear more stories." So what happened here? I did not teach them. Did I teach them? I didn't. What did I do? Let them discover. I didn't stop them when they were hitting with the rocks and everything. I let them discover. I let them experiment. I let them experience and find things by themselves. To me, that's teaching. That's how you should teach. That's how you should approach children. Let them discover. Let them experience. Let them experiment. Let them find things. Let them ask for new things, more things. And you supply new things, more interesting things, different things. And you slowly expand the subjects. And then you slowly expand to different topics. To me, that's teaching. And some students would say, "Well, I like nature. I like to learn more about flowers or plants or butterflies and bugs." And well, maybe we're talking about a future Charles Darwin. Who knows? Maybe a scientist in biology. Or some kids love to play with mechanics or things, other things. And maybe they'll become an engineer. And some kids love to play with more numbers. Maybe we're talking about a future of mathematics. You never know. But in our current education system, we want everyone to go through the same curriculum, same process, same pace, same protocol. And I think that we need to start to think about different ways of teaching our kids. And people may say it's ineffective. People might say it takes more time. To me, it's okay to take more time in the early stage when they learn to learn. Because oftentimes kids graduate high school without mastering how to learn. And they end up not learning. They stop learning. And many of kids who don't know how to learn, they just quit it because some of these education programs were compulsory. They had to go to school. But when they graduate high school, they don't seek further higher education, post secondary education, because they do not have the skill to learn. This world today, the learning is living. You stop learning, you're dead. You live, you learn, and you learn, therefore you live. And we will have more than what we can learn in this world. With especially the technological advancement around us, there will be more and more opportunities for everybody. As I shared with you this morning, the Michelle Fan, who was sharing how to do a better cosmetics. She is a CEO, she's the president of a new cosmetic company because she shared what she loved to share. I can imagine what her parents might have said to her. Can you imagine a girl who is putting videos on how to make up, and the parents might think, why are you doing that? You know, you should go to college and do something and learn how to do business or something like that. Maybe you should go for MBA, Master of Business Administration, and things like that. But she already mastered more than average people who go through MBA program. She's a CEO. She travels around the world. She gives a seminar. She gives talks, many different events, talk about business, and using the social media, using the internet, start and scale up your business. I think we have a lot more to learn from her than trying to get her into an MBA program at some college. So, long answer to you. I think in the K-12 sector, I think we should change the way we look at our children, change the way we teach them, change the way that we introduce learning opportunities, and change the way that we help them become who they need to be, becoming who they are born to be. As a parent, I have 2 kids as well. I don't tell my kids, I think you should be a doctor. You know, I don't say that. If they want to be a doctor, fine. And I even tell them that you don't have to really go to college. I tell them, you don't really have to go to college. I mean, if you don't want to go to college, do something else, that's fine too. I'm not going to go crazy. So that's my approach to educating our children. I want them to be who they are born to be, and to be in this world. I'm sure every individual has something unique and special skill set to offer to this world. And as an educator, I like to help. Next question.
Thank you very much. Here we have it.
Bueno, esa es la pregunta. Con respecto a la formación que estamos teniendo en la maestría en tecnología educativa en particular, ¿cuál es la relación entre el desarrollador de diseño instruccional y empresas o organizaciones que en un momento dado van a contratar el servicio, el conocimiento, la experiencia y finalmente a comprar el producto? ¿Cómo vamos nosotros, en caso de que queramos ser desarrolladores, que nos dediquemos exclusivamente a eso, a proteger el producto que vamos a diseñar e implementar? Si es que vamos a ser nosotros los dueños o va a ser quien nos contrate una empresa. ¿Cuál es la relación que se da ya a un nivel grande de organizaciones, como la que veíamos por la mañana, también con Coursera, por ejemplo, con esos productos que nosotros desarrollamos en un momento dado?
Because it was a very long question, I needed to clarify a little bit. He wants to know, He is a student of the Education and Technology program, the master's degree in our university, and he's concerned about the relationships that are established between the course developer, like he can be a course developer. What does he have to do in order to self-discussion? How can he protect his product, and how could he search for ways to relate to other companies in order to sell his product courses? And what is your experience about it?
Very good question. I'm glad that you asked that question. Instructional design, to me, it's an art. It's an art because this is a process that can be trained, certainly, through school programs. And instructional design can really add a lot of value to education programs at all levels, whether it is for K-12 or higher ed, vocational training, or any kind of learning scenario. Even I have master's and PhD in educational technology from one of U.S. universities. I'm glad that I went through that discipline. When I studied computer science with a bachelor's degree in computer science, I studied how to program code. And when I had an opportunity to go back to Korea and teach briefly, I was very shocked because students were listening to me and they were serious about what I was saying to them. And then I felt that I could change their lives. Whatever I say to them is very important. So now you have the responsibility of what you're saying. You have to give them the right direction, and right thing, and open the door for them to pursue their education. So after that experience, I decided to study master's degree in instructional design. And there weren't many universities that are offering the program back then. So I found a university that offered the program, and I went there. And I ended up getting the master's degree and doctoral degree in instructional design. I'm so glad that I did that because with my bachelor's degree in computer science, I understand technology quite easily. And then I know what to expect from technology. Technology can really help enable, create new possibilities. But technology itself doesn't have enough power to change. Technology needs to be integrated with the right type of a pedagogy. Okay? So technology itself doesn't really make big things. It doesn't really change. It doesn't really cause much change in someone's educational journey. You have to integrate it with the right kind of a pedagogy for the K-12 sector and andragogy in the higher education. You know what pedagogy means? Okay? Pedagogy. In Latin root is to lead child. Right? So pedagogy is to lead child. Help people pursue. How do you do that? I was able to, I had the opportunity to look at various educational programs in the U.S. while I was studying my master's program. Back then, one of my classmates was from the University of Phoenix. And until that moment, I never heard of the University of Phoenix. But his friend who was enrolled in a doctoral program was my classmate. And he was an executive at the University of Phoenix. But he didn't have a doctoral degree, so he had to get his doctoral degree. And I was talking about how to use technology in education in the class. I programmed some software that was help people learn vocabulary in English. It was sort of a game. It was a game-based education software that I was able to come up with because I had some programming background. And I presented this in the class, and my friend from the University of Phoenix looked at it and said, wow, that's interesting. I'm amazed that you can do that. Well, I can do this. Until that time, I did not know how to design a software to read a child or read people. But I was able to design fancy software packages. And then I wanted to test it with the real students. And I soon realized that the technology itself was not enough. It wasn't enough. I had to integrate some kind of a pedagogy there. So what does that mean? If I'm displaying information through the software, if I'm delivering something through the software or through the internet, displaying, delivering does not mean that someone's going to learn from it. Giving is not enough. The showing on the screen is not enough. When people talk about online education, they say, well, I can record my video, put it online. That's online education. It's not. It's not online education. It will take someone to be highly motivated to watch an entire video and finish the online program. It's just viewing and delivering and displaying. If they were the only activity, you have to engage the learners. That means you have to, when you design your software, educational software, you have to make sure that there are ample opportunities for students to engage. And I call that constructive learning. It's constructivist approach. It's not instructionism. It's more of a constructionism. And we are enabling them their potential. I like them to create things. I like them to respond. I like them to share things. I like them to present, analyze, create. You probably know Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy. There's if you look at the levels of learning, there are lower levels of learning and higher levels of learning. The lower levels of learning, understand, remember, like that, and it goes to analyzing, evaluating, creating, So the higher levels of learning. Today, a lot of educational products are focused on the lower levels of learning. You just display, you deliver, and then you can advance. But I think that we should focus on the higher levels of learning. We want to engage students to analyze things, and synthesize things, and evaluate things, critique each other's work, and present them. And that's how I envision instructional design in the current learning environment. If you just focus on the lower levels of learning, a lot of students will be disengaged. They'll get bored unless it is entertaining, like a blockbuster video or movies. The blockbuster movies, people watch it and to the end, right? And then they want to watch more blockbuster movies because they're so good, they're so entertaining, they're so engaging. But instructional videos are quite difficult to do that. You cannot, maybe some people can. I know some of my friends, professors, who wear Star Wars costumes in the classroom and then try to sing and dance. There's all kinds of entertaining to get the students' attention. I cannot do that. I don't know if you can. It's hard to engage, but if you focus on higher levels of learning activities, I think that there will be a much higher chance of engaging learners in your learning scenario, and also it is helpful for them to retain the information that they learned because they were fully engaged. And I think that that's what you need to remember as an instructional designer. Work on the higher levels of learning. So, how do you look at all different opportunities out there? I think you have to keep looking, making a list would be nice. You know, there are many different kind of educational software packages. What I do on a daily basis, I always look at new things that there are introduced. Like, you know, oh, there's a Coursera, and then I want to log in, and then I want to find out what Coursera is and what their model is. Everything, the business model, the educational, the learning model, everything. If there's a new system like a section comes up, and oh, I like to know, I like to try it, I like to create something with it and see what I can learn. So I'm open-minded in terms of learning new things. I think, you know, I cannot stop learning, but always look for new things that are coming, and then I can tell, well, that software was not successful because it doesn't have certain things. And if I look at something that's very successful, oh, this is successful because it has some unique features that are very educationally sound. So I do that all the time. I think it is very helpful. Make your own notes. I make my notes on Ever. You guys use Evernote? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I find it quite convenient. Anytime I log in, I put my notes, copy, paste URLs from different websites, and then I always go back and look at those notes from my phone, from my notebook computer anytime. And I keep reminding myself what the goal is when you're designing educational systems or platforms or learning environments. So, the long answer to you, hopefully it's helpful. Next question.
Yes.
Buenas tardes, Julio César González de Universidad Autónoma de Tamaulipas. Mi pregunta, yo regreso un poco a los MOOCs. En la mañana comentaba que la parte masiva de MOOCs es importante por el hecho de que si tenemos una clase de miles de estudiantes, hay más probabilidad de que dentro de esos miles haya un buen número de ellos motivados, autodirigidos, etcétera, es decir, buenos estudiantes, buenos alumnos. Es así yo malentendí la.
Well, here's
Julio González.
Julio González from Tamaulipas, the Autonomous University of Tamaulipas, and he wants to know about the characteristics of students that study in MOOCs, right? And he's asking if they have to be self-regulated, self-disciplined, responsible.
You say in the morning that if you had 1,000 students online, it's more probability that from that 1,000, maybe 200 are good students, self-motivated, etc. If what you say, you maybe I misunderstood.
It is about the percentage. Like how many students have the right characteristics for studying MOOCs?
Okay. Well, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked. In the earlier time, let's say last year, when the earlier MOOC courses came about, like Sebastian Throne from UDV, talking about artificial intelligence, hundreds of thousands of students signed up. Many of them signed up because it was a new thing. They just wanted to look, see what's in there. They didn't have the intention to finish the course. They didn't have enough preparation or knowledge to even engage fully in the course. They just signed up. That's why they quickly got hundreds of thousands of students. Many of them dropped out in the very first day. Signed up, they went in, oh, this is how it looks. Good, okay. And move on. They went on, signed on to another class, and so forth. So probably about 90% of the students were in that category. And then there were some students who wanted to engage in some of the activities and respond to some of the assignments, and then they wanted to follow through the guidelines suggested in the course. So I would say the graduation rate usually is less than 10% in many of these cases. But still, it's a lot of students when you think about 100,000 students and 10%, that's pretty big size still. The characteristics of some of these students who finish, who complete, are the ones certainly who mastered how to learn, how to self-regulate, how to self-discipline, and how to manage resources, how to plan their time well, because it really opens up the door for you to delay your work. You could say, well, I'm interested in, but I'm too busy today. I have a date to go out with my girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. I'm too hungry. I want to go watch a movie. I'm too tired. I need to sleep. Every kind of excuses. And one time, one of my students in my class said my mother passed away, so I could not do the homework. It was a very extreme case. I don't know if her mother really passed away or not, but that was the excuse. So I made a policy in my class. No matter what, if you do not submit your assignment on time, you did not submit your assignment on time, therefore you're not qualified. So in my class, those students who received, I think some of you received, some of you took my class, they received the statement of completion. I think that you submitted things on time and you completed everything. I had a lot more students who did not complete, who had a lot of excuses, that I made it clear to everybody, no exception. No matter what, you've been to both. So that was sort of something that I made clear. And those students who finished the courses were highly dedicated because they were interested in the topic. They wanted to complete the course and they wanted to network. I think the networking effect was even more interesting because even today, many of the students in the class are still interacting. And they're still meeting, they're still working on things together. And even more interesting thing is that they are writing a book about the whole experience. They're collecting stories from the students who took the class, and they are collecting the stories. They're going to publish a book. It's all done by the students. I say that's higher motivation. And those are the characteristics of the students. If I were to do it again, I will emphasize more on the networking part, so that the students will be able to work more effectively, more efficiently, and be able to share their insights, knowledge, and best practices, and they get to work together and so forth. So that's what I would focus on, because just displaying things and delivering things do not make much difference. But creating the environment where they really connect to their friends from different countries and work on projects together and have the accountability when they are evaluating their peers' work and so forth. And I would focus on that. And then I would encourage those students who would likely to fail, or who would likely to drop out in the middle. I would put some features in the system so that they have constant reminders or some help that can keep them on track. Because sometimes when you're too busy, you could get carried away. So some technical features that could help students to keep better track of their work and plan their activities more efficiently and effectively would be very helpful. So I am in the process of designing a whole new learning platform with some partners in Silicon Valley. So next week and the week after, I have meetings set up with these people who are designing a whole new learning platform. And it's going to be very, very different from the conventional learning platform that you see today. So Well, maybe next year I'll show it to you. Next question.
Okay. I was listening about your way to we need to teach between it's not teach it's problematizing. But I was asking me about how we can to reach the exit profile that the system is telling us that the child needs when they finish his elementary or another education. How we can do that?
How can we identify what they need to do?
Yes. Yes, for the program, for we make the knowledge that they need when they finish a level of students.
Good. That's a good question.
Like achieve the goals of the course. Not the goals.
We need to, in the system we have programs. And if we learn, like you say that we need to learn to teach, at the students, how we can be sure that the children can find the rich exit profile that they need.
Well, I think that that's something that can be assisted by some level of a technological intervention, but still, I think that it needs more personal touch. When I did a research in Mexico with the mobile learning device, I was able to put Spanish literacy programs, and then I implemented that project for 6 months in four distinctive different settings. It was near Mexicali. There's a school in the urban setting, and then there was a school in the rural village setting. The urban school setting, I had to have two distinctive different classroom environments. One with a mobile learning system, and the other without the mobile learning. The rural village setting, same thing, with the two different distinctive settings. One with mobile devices, the other class with a regular conventional intervention. So I ran the program for 6 months. I randomly assigned to either groups, and I was able to collect the data. And what I found overall, the students in the rural village setting performed better. Why? Why do you think that the children in rural village settings, overall, whether you have a mobile device or not, they perform better than the urban setting? Less distraction. Okay? Any other reasons? Motivation. By the way, both schools had high concentration of immigrant children. So many of them leave the school. So by the time that we finished the research, we lost half of the students because they moved on to different places. Because many of them don't stay in the same place long enough. So that was kind of an interesting setting. But what I found from the study was that those children living in rural villages, the parents were there. The parents were there at home. That's a very important difference. The urban kids, the parents were not. The parents, many of them were involved in manual labor work, like sweeping the streets or doing very laborious work. And many of them had this substance abuse problem, too much drinking. The parents were drinking too much. All these issues. So I interviewed the parents in the urban setting as well as the rural setting, and I asked them, how much do you know about what's happening in school. And the urban parents, they don't have a clue what's happening. The rural village parents said, oh yeah, they said they did something in the school, they brought it to home and then they showed me, and etc. Especially those kids who had the mobile devices. They took the devices home and then they showed to their parents. Mom, Dad, look what I did in the school today. Look at this. If I press this happens. If I do this happens. They were explaining that to their parents. The parents said, oh, let me see. Let me press the button and see what happens. So they learn from the kids. The parents learn from the kids. And when the kids were doing this practice at home, they are doing more learning by explaining, by presenting to their parents, guiding them and teaching them, etc. So more learning took place in the rural village setting. So, how do we know if kids need something or not? We know if we know what they're doing in school. As a parent, if we don't know what they are doing in school, we're not going to be able to tell what they will need. So, if you're parents, I suggest that you ask them what they did. Well, not just, what did you do? Oh, I had a class. Okay, that's not enough. You gotta find out. So what did you learn today? Oh, I learned world history. Oh, world history. What did you learn in world history? Oh, I learned about the trade, the merchants between Atlantic Ocean and Latin America. So you keep asking them questions. And some kids may say, oh, don't ask me questions. You're bothering me. I mean, you have to do it in a way that it's not bothersome. But you do that in a way that you are curious. You could say, oh, really? What happened then? Oh, so this happened and then, really? Wow, that's exciting. That's interesting. Tell me more about it. Just keep asking in a way that it encourages your child to tell you more and more and more. And you give them credit, like, wow, you're so smart, you're amazing, you did all that in school, I'm so proud of you. You say, I'm so proud of you. And the kids will feel so proud. They say, do you want to know more about? They will say more things about what they learned in school. So, how do we learn what they need or what else they need? It starts with how much do we know about what they're doing. And the more we understand what they're doing, what they like, what they don't like, you can link with other things. Like if your kid loves to paint, then give them more painting materials and then show them some ancient paintings from somewhere. And they will say, wow, I like that. They want to learn more. They want to pursue more. So I think that's a interaction with your children. The more you learn about your children, the more you can guide on, the more opportunities you can give your children. None of these have to cost money. It's just a simple dialogue with your children and finding things around you. You don't have to go to an expensive trip to Paris to show Eiffel Tower. There's enough things to show to your children around your village. I'm sure there are heritage, there are some historic sites, or something interesting that happened in your village as well. So many things to share with your children. So, back to your question, you have to understand more about what they like, what they don't like, what they have learned, what they've done in school, and you'll be able to tell. Technology can help, but this kind of needs more personal touch. More personal touch would be important.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim. We run out of time, so we appreciate your answers and surely we have learned a lot. Se nos termina el tiempo, damos por concluida la sesión con el Dr. Kim. Les pido un saludo a todos para